the North Plains Planning Commission for May the 11th to order at 6 o'clock. The 13th. Excuse me, 13th. That's what it says. 13th. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Please get the roll call.
Thank you. Chair Key,
Here.
Vice Chair Labonte. Here. Commissioner Health,
Here.
Commissioner Cannondale,
Here.
Commissioner Para,
Here.
Commissioner Nennekamp,
Here.
Commissioner Miller is excused this evening, and your ex officio, Counselor Mark DeForge.
Here. Thank you. All right, thank you. Item number 4 is public comments. Is there anyone on Zoom? They'll let the record show there's no one in the audience. And as I'd like to bring up a public comment and wish Counselor or Commissioner Labonte a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Commissioner Labonte.
Birthday. 29 again.
Yeah, like I'm 70 then.
Okay, so let's get back to business. All right, item number 5 is approval of the minutes. This is for April the 8th. Any corrections or changes, let me know. If not, I'll enter.
I move to approve the minutes from April the 8th, is that right?
Yeah. It's been moved by Commissioner Dunnekamp, second by Commissioner Labonte for approval of the April 8th minutes as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Hearing none, minutes are approved. All right, let's move into the land use applications and land project monthly reports. Do we have any questions, comments on those? I have asked City Manager Reed to kind of, as a staff presentation, to kind of go over some of the projects going on in town and stuff. So if there's no other questions with that, we'll wait for that later then. So hearing none, we'll move on to Planning Commission comments. Are there any comments from the Planning Commissioner?
No, I'm curious, where are we at with the code of the financing stuff? I've not heard anything more.
Great question, Commissioner Nennekamp. So we, as you recall, it was sort of phased out into immediate emergency, high priority code updates, and then rolling out a bigger effort after that. The cost identified for doing the kind of essential first things is generally speaking within the budget that we have for the general fund. So we're going to there wasn't a need to update the, Council Warrington is joining. Sorry for the, there we go. So it's just moving ahead. Rowan's moving ahead. The funds for that first part are available already in the general fund. We already have a professional services budget for just miscellaneous things, and the cost of it wasn't excessive, this first part. So that's where that is. And I know that Rowan's working on applying for funds for the bigger work later on, so.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Commissioner Labonte?
I just want to add to that. So if the funds are available, what are our next steps? I mean, we've identified those pieces of the code, so are we going to start workshops or?
I believe so. Commissioner Labonte, I would just say with Rowan gone, I don't want to misspeak on where that effort is, but the funds are available for the very first part. And so I would defer to Rowan when they get back.
So maybe the committee should get back together.
Maybe we can start getting together to do
Yeah.
that preliminary stuff
Yeah.
now.
Oh, the subcommittee?
So.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Any other commission comment? Okay, the UGB PAC meeting was last night. And they had, I attended it. And Commissioner Hout was alternate that was there. Commissioner Para was unable to, had the scheduling issue. So they presented 3 concepts, and I believe, Mr. Reed, you have those available.
I do. I will share the screen so that they're,
I had sent these out to everyone just for comments, so.
there we go. Sorry, just getting the screen to. So I have screen captures. Oh, let me, adjust this. Okay. That's probably good.
So, these 3 different concepts they presented were supposed to be, to be different enough so that they'd at least, bring up conversations about what you like about it, what you don't like about it. And I think not necessarily which one is the best one, because I don't think there is a best one. I think it's a combination of those things. My comments that I brought up on, this Creekside Park is that they have acreage of residential on the south part of the highway.
I didn't like that.
Yeah, and I know that most of us have fought for no residential over there. There's because of, I mean, the guy from, Glenn from ODOT was here and he said, oh, well, you gotta look at that land. And I said, he says, you have to take that land. I said, no, we have to look at that land. If we find reasons good enough that we don't have to take it, then we don't. And which we've made an exception for air acres already. And that's already been taken out off the table. And so I mentioned, I know that there's at least 1, if not 2 properties that don't want to come in the UGB. And we should not try to force anyone to come into the UGB that does not want to. So I'm not sure why we want to go across 316th, and worst of all, why we want to make it residential. There's no adding to it. It'd just be a little thing by itself. And if I was a kid and I wanted to go downtown, the shortest way is across the highway. So, and that's the argument we used 25 years ago. So,
You can get a whole lot of services over there right away anyways.
well,
Right.
yeah, and that's also an expensive to get services and stuff. So that was, I brought that's also same in number 3, which you'll see, so won't repeat on that. Also in concept 1, and will be also in 2, is they have residential zoning below the spillway of the reservoir. I don't understand the logic of why you would want to build below an earthen dam. I think it's dangerous. I think it's not smart. And Commissioner Labonte brought up the fact that any growth to the north is going to require a whole new drainage system that's going to go to Ghost Creek. Because that's why we have this huge wall at the edge of Bryn Hill, is so that everything flows to the east and south. They had to build it up to be able to create that flow. So anything that's developed over there is going to have to come down through that drainage area. And we already know that it's flooding on Gordon Road. And so that's just gonna add to it. So park area, water quality quality facility to prevent the flooding. Those may be some things, but I think we want to look at lower impact or lower densities in that area. So that was my comments on that. And of all the three concepts in the southeast section, it's the first time they show a curved road of some kind. And I just think straight line roads are boring, and I think they increase traffic flow. And so I think curved roads, I'd like to see some type of boulevard with a median and trees on both sides. That would be a buffer between certain areas. I think that works out well. All three plans have the connection going across Pacific Street, which I applaud, and I think it's necessary for the city of North Plains for both transportation and for water looping. It's both in our PSP and our water master plan. Other thing I did not like about this plan is it doesn't expand any more on the existing Sunset Ridge and doesn't allow for any buffering of the existing. We have connecting roads that go nowhere, and I thought that should have some more residential around it, maybe more residential around the school. So, but we go to number 2. So in number 2, they've taken out the residential on the south side and have all commercial. And I'm just not sure about, like I said before, about going across 316 and making sure we don't take in people that don't want to come in. Or there's a large house over there on 5 acres. Are they going to develop in 20 years? If they're not, there's no sense bringing it in because it's a waste of energy when we could put that use someplace else. Up in the north, they have less residents, but it's still residents below the spillway. The road coming from Main Street has a greenway on it, which I applaud for that for connection. I'd like to see it on both sides, the same type of thing with trees on both sides. In the southeast, this is the only map that has mixed use, and they stretch the mixed use along Commercial Street. There probably will not be any access along that area, so having it there doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. It is in connection to
Commercial Street?
excuse me, on West Union Street.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I was thinking it's
Yep.
commercial,
I
yeah,
got it.
but on West Union, but there is already the 1 acre of mixed use zoning that we have there. And I'd like to see it more collected around that and maybe even more around the park, take advantage of that. And then again, they're going into this same just straight line grids, and I find that very boring. But they have added more buffering and added to the Sunset Ridge, which was
Mhm.
a good addition to that. Then the slide 3. I think a lot of the commissioners commented on the commercial employment along West Union Road is something we don't want to see. It's a separation of city from city. It kind of says, oh, you guys are there and we're there. We already have that right now. And I don't think we want to add to that. That's the concern we have right now on Commercial Street from any possible development of duplexes along there. We have the Glencoe corridor and then the Commercial Street corridor, and then they're separated by residents. It just doesn't make good connectivity. They've added in the southeast, they've added more housing in there, but imagination of how they did it, I'm not impressed with. Again, they had residential on the south, which obviously I'm opposed to. And so, taking all those into consideration, I came up with concept 4. This. Sorry. Not really. So this is just something I rushed out. And so it's taking advantage of certain things. It's below the spillway to the northwest is there's park area, probably water quality facility to prevent extra flooding for drainage and all that. In the south area, taking out some commercials across 316th, and it extends into the commercial area because that one property right there says she did not want to come in. Hopefully development in that corridor, they're talking about the beach road that would trigger some kind of signaling in the northeast corner added to that about the park is be nice to see Main Street not go straight lines like it was, more of a curve thing to make it more pleasing to go to the park and away and then connect to Mountaindale. And actually, once it's past north, it's Mountaindale. And so they're also I've marked out a little block there with a question mark. There's a piece of property there that's for sale for $1.7 million on 1.59 acres. I find it hard to believe that they're going to want to develop that. So again, why do we even consider bringing in properties that won't develop in 20 years? Because, I mean, we're not looking at Recology because they have a lease on that property and they will not come in, will not be developing. So we're not even looking at adding them to BPB.
How big along the lease on that property?
I'm thinking it's a 15-20 year lease, but I'm not positive. That one was
When you first start, okay,
Yeah.
so.
17 or 18. Then going out to the southeast section, we were discussing traffic percentage flows. They were talking about 25% of the traffic flowing out across the new Pacific connector to Glencoe, and I just indicated that without some signaling at Glencoe and Pacific, people are not going to want to sit there at that stop sign waiting to go south. So they need to consider that in what they're doing. I've kind of shaded in there where I marked residential. They have that as a park. I think we want to try to keep residential along West Union for connectivity. Again, I talked about moving the mixed use kind of around the park. And instead of the road being farther over, it kind of goes along the mixed use area. I've curved out, softened the curves on the Pacific connector and then split it so that you could, the one to the north is more of a buffer between residential and then the employment ground. And then the other one to the south. And again, you know, tree line boulevard with a median so that with signaling, then people have an island in the center to address that. And then south of that, I'd like to see park systems. And then I always talk about a regional water quality facility. And so incorporating that in there so that not every development has to have its own water quality facility. So that's kind of the things that I brought up. And I incorporated a number of things that you guys told me. So if you have other comments, that would be good to hear now. I did have the guy, I don't know, Glenn was from ODOT and Travis was from.
I forget the name of Travis's consulting firm, but he used to be with Sierra Architects. And that company no longer exists, so he's with a different company now.
Yeah, one of the people on the pack wanted to see my concept and then they came over and they both took pictures of it. So just because I think the tax, sometimes they don't maybe understand, in which Glenn said, some of the history of why you don't do this and why you don't do that, and I think a lot of that needs to come into play. What does the city want? What's best for the city?
Yeah, but the TAC are just the technical people that are given what the understanding is of the concepts from the process, and then they figure out.
Right.
They get slide rulers.
I think that was brought up too, what's financially fiscal and all that. That's all great, but let's come up with a plan and then figure out what's financially fiscal from that, because if we don't plan what we want, then why even worry about it? So, but comments from the planning commission?
I think you captured a lot of the issues that I kind of had with the first three in concept four, so I like what I see there.
Anyone else?
You went a little fast and I can't see that.
Well,
So
that-
I would love to see a copy of it if we can, all kind of get one to digest and, because we're not asking us to make our life.
No,
decisions right
this
now.
is just
Yeah.
thinking about it, yeah.
Um,
I mean, there's gonna be, from my understanding, Bill, there's a community meeting coming up on May the 22nd, I believe, no. Was it,
June 10th.
that's
Oh, no,
the,
that's PC.
that's PC City Council is June 10th, I believe, joint. But there was also gonna be, I think, a community meeting, I think I heard.
Well, for this,
Number-
I think to be perfectly honest, I can't remember the date, but the next meeting for citizen involvement is like a big community
Right,
meeting.
right.
And I think it is in the second week of June.
Oh, June.
But I believe, but what might be getting confused is that OPB's Think Out Loud program is gonna be here on June 11th. At the elementary school, at Sunset Ridge. And so, that, at least in my brain, perhaps is mixing up the dates, but that would be the next kind of big community meeting anyway.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on the UGB update? UGB PAC meeting update? All right. And we'll move on to item 8 is staff comments.
Very good. Thank you, Chair. So, I was just gonna kind of give a verbal report on a variety of projects that are going on. Of course, the urban growth boundary concept planning process is in full swing. And you all got to discuss that there. So I was just gonna kind of run through some things that are going on. And so if you have any questions about any of them, or if something else comes to mind, I'd be happy to, try to help with that. So the first big thing I guess I would say is that the Glencoe Opportunity Area Project, which is an urban renewal agency project. That one still crawls along, but it's moving. Actually, on the way over here, I'm playing. So the brownfield grant from the EPA is practically secured, but we are in a process of kind of going round and round over whether or not the URA and the city are truly separate legal entities from the federal government's perspective. And until that gets settled, which they are under Oregon law, but until that gets settled to their satisfaction, we don't know whether we can, whether we need to register the grant as the city with the federal government for receiving money, or we need to have a new registration for the urban renewal agency. So this is the world of federal funding and grants and that sort of thing. So it sounds very legalistic and technical, but that's where it's been for a little while, and it's been slowed down by the occasional government shutdown. But our attorneys are reviewing the information and about to give us something to send to the EPA just to hopefully settle any last questions. But that $1 million will be authorized to pay for a public outreach process, as well as project management and execution of removal of up to 12 inches of soil on the entire property. before we do that, we have to remove the structures that are on the property. You've driven by, you've seen the property, it's been cleaned up of most of the brush. A lot of the trees, you can, for the most part, see across the entire property. The structures that are standing, they obviously need to go. And then a few very large trees that we're working on getting some quotes for removal. So the structures, it turns out that our request for $275,000 to do demolition on the structures and removal of them did not make it in to the Christmas tree, what's commonly called the Christmas tree bill in the legislature. Long story there, but the funding request wasn't actually submitted for us. So we didn't get money from the legislature to do that. So I've been playing phone tag, and on the way over here, I got an email from the executive director with COLPAC, the Columbia Pacific Economic Development District. They're a federally recognized district that North Plains is in. And we're going to apply for a low interest, no interest, partly forgivable loan to remove the structures. And that program works on better terms than the loan we would get from Business Oregon, which would not be forgivable. It could be no interest, but there would be no element of it forgivable. The COLPAC program, a revolving loan fund, is a better deal for us because part of it would be forgiven. So I'll get that nailed down with Sarah Lou. I'll take a look at the email she sent, but I'll get that nailed down. And then we can have that financed. I mean, everything that Urban Renewal Agency does technically has to be debt. What it does has to be borrowed money. And so that will be a loan from COLPAC, and we'll get the structures out of there, and then we can move the dirt. Two questions.
You had a buyer for the Thornwood and,
A local contractor who does restoration is going to, we've finalized an agreement with him to take the barn down, and he's gonna salvage the wood, and he's gonna create something for us to go into the Kindle building. So we won't be spending any money, but we will be getting, he'll salvage the structure, and then we'll be getting some kind of decoration, something in return. So he gets free materials. We don't spend a dime, and we also get kind of a nice reuse of the wood. So, so that's about settled. So that should be happening soon.
Question on structure removal, is that anything that TBF&R might want to use as a training?
We've discussed it. We've kind of floated the idea a bit, and I haven't like gotten a serious take on it. Like maybe one of them could be burned down for training. At this point, the buildings are of no interest to Washington County Sheriff's Office because they've been so hollowed out by the hazardous materials removal. It's down to the studs inside each of the structures. I mean, surprised nothing was blown over the winter with some of the winds we had. But inside the structures are barely studs because everything was pretty much removed inside. So I just haven't gotten a serious response on doing that, but we're open to it. It would just be, it would be char after it was all done, of course, still removed. But once they're out of the way, we can remove the dirt. The grocery store is still very interested. They would, Fresh Foods, they still would like North Plains to be their next store. They just finished opening a store up in Seabrook, Washington. And that's been a lot of work. And because it is a remote store from where they're located in Cannon Beach, Manzanita, that's been a process. And so they're still kind of distracted with making sure that new opening is working well. So they're not in a super rush to open in North Plains, and they understand our time frame dealing with cleanup. So, but they're still very, very enthused, and they would like North Plains to be next and to be kind of the first Tualatin Valley store. So that's still on the table. The rest of the property, we have to figure out differently.
I have a question. Are the existing structures pretty well locked up? I've been seeing a bunch of kids circling properties, throwing rocks, kicking the doors.
I'll let Chief know. We might have lost, I'll double check, but we might have lost some no trespassing signs.
Yeah.
What we haven't lost is, I mean, the window's been boarded up and the cops have been notified usually, and we'll hear, we've got a report of somebody doing something. But I'll remind him or ask him to, see what might be necessary if there are any further issues. But with it, at least with it cleared out now, you could see kids doing dumb things
Yeah.
in ways that you couldn't before, so we can be quicker to respond.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Well, I just think if you get the right people to remove the tree, they can drop the trees on the building and knock them down at the same time.
Still gotta bulldoze and still gotta haul it out.
You're always thinking.
Yep, creative way to deal with it. The second thing I guess I would say is that, you probably saw that the city got, $1 million from the USDA, Rural Capital Facilities Program, and that's from Congress. And so, Suzanne Bonamici, her staff got that request in successfully and it was funded. And that originally goes back to 2024, when Andy was city manager. But the Civic Center project in downtown North Plains is really kind of meant to be a city hall of some sort, and you're probably aware of that project, and it was discussed in the, most recently in the downtown plan process when that was in 2022-23. But, the city still doesn't have we have the Kindle building, which actually has some uses in it that mean a civic center city hall doesn't have to be as big as originally conceived. But we still don't have council chambers, community meeting space that isn't this with all of its challenges. And just kind of other city space, including kind of safe, modernized library space. The existing library building is as beautiful as it is. We've run out of room, and the annex is a Band-Aid to the space solution. So the Civic Center would kind of help with that, as well as general city space. I am about to go out to informal bid with some architects that are familiar with the project, to update the plan for the Civic Center. See how much smaller it will be, how less expensive it will be, based on the fact that the Kindle building has been built since with a lot of state money. And we don't need, the Washington County Sheriff's Office, the police department prefer to be over a Kindle building with a secured parking. And it's an emergency operations center, with the capability to be open through disasters and other emergencies. So they would prefer to stay there. So we don't need a police department facility in the Civic Center in the same way that we had. And there's other space in the Kindle building. We don't necessarily need to build redundantly in the Civic Center. So I'll be getting an informal bid out just to kind of do an update conceptual plan so that we have something in hand to kind of finish the process of committing the USDA funds for the Civic Center. So that's kind of where that is right now. Any questions about any of that? Let's see. Were there any capital projects in particular? We haven't been doing, I guess the one project that I know, Chair, you have asked about at different venues, and you're aware of it in different ways, but kind of the big project that's been on hold for a while has been this project around here, the Jesse Mays Perimeter Project. As you all know, we have some trees, we have a lot of trees, including plum trees around the perimeter of the building that are, way past kind of their safe public tree lifespan and are increasingly a hazard. As lovely as they are and as wonderful shade trees as they are, somebody getting hit on the head by something is a problem. And then we just, there's a plan for sidewalks and improvements all the way around, including additional parking and a variety of things. We are in utility right-of-way easement, temporary access negotiation, HE double hockey stick. It's just taking a while dealing with utilities, attorneys, and process, making sure that we have the appropriate right-of-way clearance to do what we need to do. And we're just not quite there yet, and it's been taken a surprising amount of time. And then in the background of that is dealing with the railroad, on, issues with kind of their, right-of-way. It's kind of part of the project, because when we do this project, we will be doing a number of other projects that involve, digging up, replacing, upsizing pipes, and then, repaving over it with some sidewalks. So when this gets initiated, it's going to be, some other projects around it will be sequenced so that we upsize everything underground we need to, as well as, you know, get things in place above ground, including this project, but this kicks off the rest of it. And so that's why it hasn't started. It's just utility and railroad right of way process. So that's where that is. But we're winding down on that, and two different attorneys at BEH working on it, so we'll get there. Let's see, any other big projects that come to mind kind of from development perspective? Stuart, was there anything else that came to mind? Those are kind of the things occupying our time a lot lately.
Right, I know that the Northwest Natural Gas was changing lines and moving stuff in commercials, or excuse me, on Main Street.
On Main Street.
So that's another capital improvement project that must be getting at least closer.
Yes, I guess I would just throw all of the utilities and the right of way issues with them, in one big bucket of at the speed of attorneys going back and forth.
And there's the Pacific Street Improvement Project being planned too.
Yes, but not ready to pull the trigger on anything immediately.
So
there.
that's way behind. Yeah.
It is.
Is it true that it's only going from Glencoe to Maine and not all the way down to the new 322nd, which there's only a couple pieces of property that don't have sidewalk?
I would need to check on that. I don't think that, I don't think so, but
Well, that's what one of the neighbors.
just kind of rumored, yeah. I don't believe that's the case, but I'll check on. Otherwise, we had a workshop held by Washington County not long ago about the four-way stop that is being planned for Glencoe Commercial West Union. It won't be a roundabout. It will not be.
Oh, okay.
It will not be a roundabout. No, the reason is because, getting back to the railroad, a roundabout is big enough that ultimately it kind of gets into railroad right of way issues for crossing, whereas a four-way signalized light does not.
Appropriate signalized light benefits the people that live south, coming off of Glencoe. Because then at least it'll cause breaks in the traffic so that people coming off Pacific and other streets.
Yeah, so the roundabout is not something being talked about anymore. It's just the railroad issue makes it not possible or infeasible from, I mean, you can do anything if you throw enough money at it, and that's not gonna work. So it'll be a signalized intersection, and the workshop that we had to kind of go over things was extremely preliminary. It'll take a while for them to kind of get all of that studied and identified. But they're still very early in the process, but that meeting was just meant to kind of get people oriented to the idea of what would be coming and what the time frame would be. My brain's been all over the place this week, UGB budget committee.
So talking about traffic stuff, is there ever any part of the conversation that goes to possibly commercial getting on to 26 at the west end of town? Is there ever any?
I will say what Stuart has heard and doesn't like to hear every single time. Sorry. Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Chair. Well, so the reality is that Gordon Road is barely, but it is just short of a mile from, it's either Glencoe or Dersham. And there's a minimum of 1 mile distance between freeway interchanges. So, right, so the best we could do, and ODOT isn't really seriously talking about this, but the only thing they have said that could be possible under the rules currently would be, is it off or on? Chair?
Going west.
Yeah,
Yeah, my proposal was a off-bound west ramp
yeah,
that goes underneath and then swerves around and then comes back up on to Commercial Street, lines up with Commercial Street.
Yeah.
It's in the area between the highway and the railroad track, which is probably not gonna develop much. And
Right.
then have a a westbound on ramp from, Gordon that heads down to Dershing. You know, if it keeps it all on that side kind of Gordon Road, so therefore it shouldn't have any problem with the traffic weave, and that's why they talk about being a mile away.
Yeah, so I guess the bottom line is that what we haven't heard from ODOT is no way, never. So I guess what I would say is nothing worthwhile ever got done without persistence. But what we haven't heard from ODOT is, yeah, we could do that. What I will say though is that there is there should be an updated process to kind of do a corridor TSP. One hasn't been done for quite a while. And that's part of the problem, is there's just been a lot of growth in North Hillsborough, North Plains has grown, Banks is on the verge of blowing up. And it's getting the transportation funding package process in Salem, even though it kind of crashed and burned, the process of coming out and seeing, you know, what improvements are needed. And then the funding package that that ultimately resulted, not necessarily helping us greatly. But the process did identify the need for an update. And so you might see some slightly different posturing on those questions when that's done.
Okay, thank you.
I hadn't brought this up to, Rowan or to Dustin, but, I noticed coming out of the post office that the, property there is starting to look like a ballpark fence with all the advertisement and banners. And I'm sure there's not permits for those things, so it might be kind of, you know, covering up some eyesore back there, but still, I mean, it's gotta be against our code to be doing that.
Probably, I'll check in with Rowan about it. So one thing that will be happening before long, and I visited with the mayor today about this. And so Councilor DeForge, you'll be hearing this ahead of people, well, everybody else on council too. But we're looking at a June work session to go over our code is really lacking in a bunch of different ways, of course. But the city attorney has gone through and put together a draft addition to the code that spells out why and how we can and why we can and the conditions for how for actually doing code enforcement. Like there's nothing in the code regarding that. And so we're gonna visit, the staff be visiting about it to kind of review what's been done on Monday. And then we will discuss with council bringing it in June for the June work session. And then we may have, based on feedback, you know, reception to the idea and feedback, we might have an ordinance for its adoption in July. At least that's the tentative schedule if council loves the idea of it. But the reality is that it's practically impossible to have really firm footing to enforce code in this town. It just is. It's just a lot of wiggle room, a lot of interpretation, a lot of vague things, wide ranges of fees that have too much judgment call in it. So that'll be the first big step. And then we can kind of get at some of these things a little better.
I noticed that Frank's Excavation has started construction next to the Kindle Public Service Building.
Yeah, they have, and they pretty much have the site cleared of vegetation, and I just am like, why can't that be the Glencoe Opportunity Area? It's beautiful, it's flat, it's ready to go. DDT, man, that's a bad thing. But yes, they pretty much cleared out all the vegetation and are kind of in site leveling or should be soon.
Has there been any further movement on Far West back property?
None at all, and I've been meaning to touch base with them. I haven't heard from them in a while about that project. The last time I visited with them was probably 4 or 5 months ago. And they continued to express interest in a recycling facility that focused on recycling high-tech equipment from the manufacturers in Hillsborough and elsewhere. So not open to the public, come do your recycling, but specialized equipment recycling, electronics equipment recycling only. But I haven't heard anything in a few months, so that's a good reminder.
I just noticed on the list, there's the 313 drainage concern south of North Avenue. Do we know anything about what exactly is the issue there?
No, I think that's something maybe Dustin and Brian have been visiting about.
Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with the Bryn Hill construction.
I don't think so,
Okay,
no.
I just wondered because obviously they did work on the road, so.
Yeah. No, not that I'm aware of.
And any update on the commercial street duplex project?
Nothing out of them for a while. We kind of had concepts where they wanted, and this was a while ago. I think the last thing you saw is what we saw a number of months ago, where they kind of had a duplex ADU type set of, type structures. We've heard nothing out of them. I will say we had Kent from Kentco had come in earlier, was it earlier this week or last week, pitching the idea of a night market on his property. And how that could recode where the food trucks are currently, but improving that spot. So we'll see. Rowan was working with him on what that might look like and what might be needed regarding code compliance, but he's extremely interested in doing something like that. So it would be kind of farmers marketing, but nighttime and once a week is the idea. So we'll see where that goes.
Okay, let's see. I'm assuming with the construction on the corner of Wasco and Main, the house going there, that Wasco finally will be opened up.
I think so. I mean, that's what I understand. Just kind of goes with it, so.
Right. So, any of the planning commissioners have any questions of any of the comments?
I saw them,
Or bring up anything else?
they were flagging and, marking out the parking lot at the subway. Is there anything going on there? They were there for 2 days.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a mystery. So we got, somebody asked the city last week, or maybe it was the week before, if the subway was, the subway building, former subway building was in violation of any city blight code, that sort of thing. And we reviewed it and our code, our code deems things a nuisance regarding an abandoned building. It's pretty narrow in terms of falling apart, public safety threat. But if it's safely boarded up, even if it isn't the prettiest thing in the world and it's not posing a real physical hazard, our code's pretty narrow about that. So there's nothing for us to enforce at this point. But just to double check, we checked in with the owner and he sent along yeah, we've got something that's the community's gonna be very happy with. And that's all we heard. And so you seeing them is news to me. What I will say is that this from about November of 2023 through about May of 24, the city was working with the land use and entitlement planning firm that Starbucks uses, and there was actively a Starbucks being planned for the building, and they were gonna, primarily the big changes were gonna be to improve and double up the drive-through. And then spring of 2024, they just sort of ghosted us. So it's just been what it is until recently. So we don't have a plan yet but something's brewing.
Commissioner Levante?
And looking at all these maps, it just made me think, we just went through a process at the county because initially there was a deadline at the end of April to make all web content ADA accessible. Is the city working towards that?
Yes, and, so Teresa and Rowan are honestly in the early stages of it, and, there's actually a training that LOC is going to give on that very thing soon. So we're gonna avail ourselves, but we have there's actually a lot of different updates and improvements that need to happen to the website.
It was quite the effort for us to get.
Yeah, so, I am not directly involved in that effort, but, Rowan is or will be, and that's something that, we'll be working with LOC on to make sure we're doing it correctly, but.
Since we're using consultants for all this, is it something that we can ask them to make sure they're compliant now instead of having to go back and convert them later?
Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable, yeah.
And also a suggestion, you might remove all Washington County tax maps off the website. Not only are they very out of date, but
Mhm.
they're also not compliant.
You sound like you're speaking from experience.
Well, no, the maps are very old. Nobody's ever bothered to update any of them,
Yeah.
but some of them.
Okay,
updated
good to know, yeah,
many times.
very good, thank you.
Did you have any other staff comments?
I don't believe so, I mean, there's a lot going on, it's, maybe a little too much for everything going, for, city staff on a day-to-day basis, but I wouldn't say so, we're just trying to plug along on things.
Any of the commissioners have any questions or staff comments? All right, then we'll move on to item 9, the city council comment. You have our councilors report. Do you have any words of wisdom for the planning commission?
It's good to be here and I really enjoyed your feedback after the TGM meeting. Thank you. Yeah, got any questions for me or?
Yeah,
anything?
any concerns or questions for Councilor DeForest to take the city council? No, I would just appreciate some funding to do some code updates. So other than that, thank you for being here.
Thank you for letting me be here.
All right. There's no other commission business? Nobody out there, nobody on Zoom? Our next regular scheduled meeting is June the 10th. If not, we will adjourn at 53. Lucky you got a short one too.
You guys run a tight meeting.